Hello, and welcome to another episode of Purlfect Pairings. My name is Gayanne, she, her.
And my name's Nicole, and my pronouns are she and her.
Before we start today, we'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous owners of the land on which we are recording, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. We acknowledge the often fraught relationship between Indigenous land rights and the Australian farming industry. And we acknowledge the contribution of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people to the fibre arts community over the millennia.
We have something a little bit different today, don't we?
So different and so fun.
So we've got one of our lovely friends. We thought it was time to bring a little bit more, other crafts, but particularly crochet to the podcast.
Yeah.
And so we've got a special friend who is proficient in all kinds of crafts, really.
Oh my goodness, she's so talented.
A very big crocheter.
And I think part of there's quite a few people in our community that we're building here with Purlfect Pairings who do crochet or knit and crochet, just like Priya.
Let's have a chat to Priya, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, here we are with Priya Ghandi, who is a friend of ours, and quite the craft queen. There's genuinely nothing that you can't do, I'm pretty certain.
I do like dabbling in lots of different things. Can't make up my mind.
Yeah, so let's go through some of the things that you do. So we're here today, I guess, particularly to talk about your crochet and knitting work.
Yeah.
But then there's also these beautiful polymer clay earrings that you're wearing. What else?
So I guess earrings in general, I really like making earrings. So I've done some laser cut earrings and some macrame earrings, which we'll be sharing in a little bit. Some crochet earrings as well. I guess I like to combine crafts. Like these are polymer clay kind of granny square-esque sweaters. And just because why not combine the two? And yeah, I've also been getting into painting and sketching and kind of anything, I guess mark making I've done, not calligraphy, but I do really enjoy like scripting, and I've been dabbling with ink dip pens, which are those like glass pens, kind of like quills, and kind of trying sketching and writing and stuff with them. I like doing everything, and I've done some embroidery, sashiko a little bit, sewing. I think that's probably a good summary.
I'm gonna summarize that with like bona fide craft queen. That's incredible.
Thanks.
So where does this crafting come from? Where?
I think it's like suppressed crafting from like a lifetime of like, I guess it's sort of funny because I feel like since we've met, I've been super into crafting. So you haven't known me kind of before the crafting explosion of the last like probably 6-7 years. But for a lot of my life, I thought that like, because I'm an engineer by profession, and I like love math and spreadsheets and physics and stuff. And I just kind of thought like, oh, I can't be artistically creative and a math person. Like it felt like, oh, I'm good at math, so that's my thing, and I'm not good at crafts, so I can't do crafts. Like it was this weird binary that I had in my head. And then I don't know, the last 6-7 years, I was like, why do I think that's a thing? Like I can do whatever I want. And I got into crocheting, and then I've kind of dabbled in little things. Like it's fun to make stuff with your hands, and I've always like enjoyed that, but I had this hang up of like I'm not good at it, so I can't do it. And now I kind of don't care. Like I'm good at some stuff. Like I think I'm pretty good at crocheting. I'm not super great at painting, but it's really fun and I like it anyway, and I don't care. Like I'm like realizing I don't have to be good at stuff to enjoy it.
And so crocheting is kind of one of your major
definitely
crafts?
It's I think part of me trying lots of things is kind of figuring out what do I like to do most, and I feel like crochet was one thing that it just, once I got into it again as an adult, because I dabbled a little bit as a kid, but yeah, when I got into it as an adult, I sort of realized like there's so many different things you can make with crochet, and like it's never boring, and I, as you can tell by my craft like obsession, that I like new things. And so there's always something new in crochet, and I've gotten really into it, and it's definitely one of my major crafts.
And so when selecting a crochet project, what comes first? The pattern or the yarn or?
I would say it's maybe like 60-70% pattern, 30-40% yarn, kind of depending on like if I guess we'll get into this, but I primarily crochet with plant fibers, and so cotton generally. I'm very allergic to wool, and not just from sheep but other animals as well, so I've just sort of stuck to the plant fibers. And so if I come across like a really beautiful cotton in the wild, it's impossible to pass up. Like I have to get some. But I do try to, I'm gonna have a very long Ravelry, favorites. Yes. Just a massive queue of projects that I want to make and things like that. So I try to like kind of have that on hand. So if I do find some yarn, I can at least buy the right quantity, that kind of thing. But I love I love the I guess like the inspiration just from browsing patterns and kind of seeing what's out there and seeing how different people interpret the same pattern, and putting my own twist on it.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so you don't see cotton around that much. Do you find it difficult to find, or have you?
I have a few sources, I guess, where I more normally get cotton from. So one of my absolute favorite indie dyers is VK Yarns, based in Queensland, and I'll be showing you a lot of projects I've made with her yarns, and they're just beautiful colorways. And what I love about it is that I feel like there's so much beautiful wool that gets hand dyed, and I was always getting really jealous of like everyone that got to use this like amazing beautiful stuff. And then I came across Michaela's work, and I was just like, oh, I can use that too. And it's been just really wonderful to use that, especially with knitting. Like I've really appreciated how hand-dyed yarn works with crochet and knitting, and it looks different and it works a bit differently, and that's been a really fun exploration as I've gotten into knitting. But with cotton, I actually didn't, when I first started crocheting, I didn't realize that fiber was so important, because I definitely tried to make things with cotton that didn't work, and I didn't really understand why. And it took me, I feel like, a few years to kind of realize that it's not just about like the size of the ply or the thickness of the yarn and the pattern, but there are other things. And so gotten a little bit savvier around that, I think.
I think it might be time to dive into some of the things that you've brought. So let's talk about some of your projects that you've got there.
Sure, awesome. I can start with what I'm wearing.
Yeah.
So this is a top by Nomad Stitches. It's the Zoshil top. I think I'm saying that correctly. And it's really like, it's not my first garment, but it's probably the one that I wear the most because I'm most proud of it and I really like it. It's just not very winter friendly, but it's I just love the like lace top. It's really beautiful. This is actually silk yarn, but it's kind of cottony in feel. Like it's
may I touch you?
So it's it's kind of an interesting texture, and I just I found actually this was a pandemic make me feel better through buying yarn purchase that I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It was just really pretty, and I really wanted it.
Proven therapy.
I was feeling low about being in lockdown, and then I found this pattern, and I thought it would look really nice having kind of this contrast. So it's like a forest green, and then like a pale peachy pink, and then it goes back to forest green down here. It's such a I love Nomad Stitches patterns. Like they're just, I feel like she was one of the first designers that I encountered where it really opened up my mind to how diverse crochet can be. And it's not, nothing against the granny square, but it's not just granny squares. Like you can do so much with crochet, and just this appreciation for what you can make with it, and just also an amazement for her creativity of how she approaches, tops like this or her jumpers, and I think she's made dresses and like just so many different things, swimsuits, like so many patterns.
Fantastic. Okay, and what else have you got to show us?
So this is one of my favorite shawls. I've been wearing it all the time, especially recently. This is the Garden of Honey shawl, heavily modified, by Not So Square Designs. The original shape is a triangle, but I'm more of a rectangular kind of long scarf person, but the pattern itself is the same. I've just turned it into it's super long. I don't know how many meters, but it's probably like I don't know, 4 meter, 3 meter, something.
It's
It touches the ground when I
looks like
stand
a
on it.
snake skin.
It does. You're right. Yeah, I never noticed that. But the thing I love about this pattern, so it's 2 skeins of gradient yarn that you kind of work from opposite ends essentially, and so that's what I did, and I used a hobby yarn cake. They make some really beautiful cotton cakes with this lovely gradient, and the way that they do the gradient I think is really special because it's so the yarn has 4 individual plies, and then kind of every so often one of those plies gets changed to another color, so that's how you go from like this kind of natural OD color, and then it adds in kind of one ply of blue, and then 2 ply, and then 3, and then it's all blue, and then kind of goes all the way to black, and it does that with all the gradients, and it's just, I think up close, like it just looks I don't know if marled is the right term, kind of when, and I feel like in a knitting pattern you might see that. I just love, it's just such a different kind of gradient. But yeah, I love like the colors. I spent a lot of time comparing the 2 skeins together to kind of like get the right, like I wanted the right gradient. I wanted to have like dark contrasting. So like it alternates. So it's 2 rows of each skein back and forth. And I really wanted it to end in dark colors, kind of in the opposite structure, I guess, like the insides of the snake skin, I guess, versus the lines. I guess it's also supposed to be more like a beehive kind of honeycomb. But it's a little bit of a squished honeycomb. But yeah, I love this one. This was a really fun one for me to play around with the shape because I did change the shape, and so I did a lot of swatches testing kind of how do I want to increase and decrease and things like that. So it's not symmetrical, as you can see, like the ends are very different looking because I will admit at the end, I just really wanted to be done with it because I really wanted to wear it. I was just like, I'm just going to keep going till it's done.
I have more than a few projects like that myself. Yeah. Slightly shorter sleeves than you were planning, but no one's going to know.
Yeah, but it's one of my absolute favorites. And I know it's cotton, so like people think cotton can't be that warm, but it's actually like, at least for me, for Melbourne winters, this is perfect. Because it's like I can wrap it around a lot and stuff like that, and it kind of keeps the cold out. But I guess,
and it's quite a dense. What size crochet hook did you use for?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Something quite fine.
No, because I think this is probably around even like a 5-ish ply. They called it something different. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, it's a good question.
It's just like a lovely sort of quite dense crochet. Yeah, and I think it's it's a good weight, and I feel like, I don't know, I like in cold weather it's nice to feel that weight of something, even and
if
I guess when it's this long you can just
I can wrap it like so many times. So it's and it's a fun accessory too, I think.
No, it's absolutely gorgeous. I remember you making this and just looked stunning.
Yeah, thanks.
What else have we got there?
So this is my first Tunisian crochet project. So this is the Solar Flare Shawl by A.K. Laurie Designs. And so one thing I should admit is that I actually did not interpret the pattern correctly. So these stripes are supposed to be, I don't know if you can kind of see the stripes, they're supposed to be this way and they're at an angle. I didn't, and I could not figure out why I couldn't do it. I spent all this time. And then I was like, whatever, it's pretty, I'll make it anyway. And then literally the very last couple rows, I realized what I was doing wrong. And I was like, well, too late. This is my shawl now. And I'm happy with it. It's still really pretty. And I'm using that VK Yarns. I actually can't remember the colorway, if it's maybe sunset or something. But it's so beautiful. And what I love is that Michaela is so cool about I just kind of asked her, I was like, oh, I want this, can you, I think she actually had a kind of a variegated yarn skein that I really liked. And I was like, can you make this into a gradient for the whole skein? And she's like, okay, yeah, sure. And so that was so cool. And I got this custom cake for this shawl. And I just think, I love the patterns. And I love the, the kind of the speckles in black. I just think it's a really cool effect with the alternating.
And was that just all part of the skein itself?
Yeah. So the blue, is a separate, so this was also 2 skeins that you alternate, and this is super fun. I've not done Tunisian crochet before this.
Let's talk a little bit about Tunisian crochet, because that might be something that some of our viewers aren't familiar with.
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of halfway between crocheting and knitting. So you use a crochet hook, but you actually, so so like crochet, there's a hook and you have to kind of create the stitches, but like knitting, you actually keep the stitches on the hook or on the needle. And then this one actually did have, I used a cable to hold all the stitches. So it does kind of look like knitting, but you've just got the one hook instead of the two needles. But it's like every other row. So you do one row where you pick up stitches, and then you do one row where you kind of take them off, and then you take them all on at once and then all off, or versus like normal crochet where you're kind of creating each stitch as you go. So it's and you get some really different, I feel like the fabric feels a bit different. Like it's, I guess, well, this is maybe more similar to the one we just looked at, but it's I feel like it's a more opaque fabric, and you can get some really cool woven knitting-esque feel from it that I don't think you get with kind of your normal crochet stitches.
I think if you saw it just in the store, you would look at it and assume it was some sort of quirky knitting stitch, more so than thinking it was a crochet stitch.
Yeah, I agree.
And if someone's interested in trying Tunisian crochet, is it, if you're comfortable with crochet, is it quite an easy transition to Tunisian?
Yeah, because the stitches aren't super different. Like there's a way, I mean, obviously because I made a big mistake, but it's a pretty mistake, so I'm okay with it. There is sort of like kind of figuring out what part of the stitch the hook goes through. Like that was that's what I realized in retrospect, what I was doing wrong. But there's lots of videos and stuff, so I'm sure had I like spent a little bit more time looking at videos versus just diving into it, maybe I would have.
But also in your way, you definitely wouldn't have picked the easiest Tunisian crochet thing to start with. You would have dived straight into the intermediate.
Yeah, so. I think I did like a little swatch just to kind of figure out like how do I pick up stitches and do it, and I watched a couple videos. There's some wonderful, there's one of the videos I can, I'd have to double check the names of the designers, but there's some good ones out there that, kind of walk you through the basics. But you don't even need a special hook. Like if you're not making something big, if you're just making like a square or something, as long as you have a hook, I would say the ones without the handles, so like not the clover ones, but just kind of the straight hooks, you can actually do a lot of Tunisian crochet without having to buy a whole new set of tools. And I think actually AK Lori has some patterns where you can make a whole shawl, but you do it kind of in pieces. And no piece is kind of longer than a standard crochet hook. So it's actually something you could dabble in, and even if you don't want to commit to like the whole craft. But it opens up, I just think it opens up like just more really beautiful ways of making things and getting different outcomes. Like I just love that like there's the stripes go different ways on both sides of this fabric, which I just think is so cool. It's a little bit hard to tell. You'll see in like the original design, it's a little bit more like obvious that like the stripes are, like you can see the back, you have horizontal stripes. I think maybe you can tell. I don't know if that's working. And that's what drew me to the pattern. I just thought it was so cool that it was the same, like it's not double knit or anything. It's just, that's the magic of the stitches.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell I love rainbows.
There's so many rainbows still. I can see them just out of shot. Let's have a look at some more rainbows.
So this one is the Blur Shawl by Addie Day, and this one was really fun. And actually, I used this was, I think the 2021 Advent, Christmas Advent calendar from VK Yarns. I treated myself to, and it was this beautiful rainbow. And this isn't even the whole. This is just a few of the colors. And this Blur Shawl is just so lovely. It's 4-ply. It's gigantic. Like you can see, it's so big. And this was super fun to make because it was actually like, it's quite simple in the stitches, so it was really meditative. And actually I did most of this while I was traveling at the beginning of last year, and it was like the perfect thing to take like on a plane or like while waiting somewhere, or kind of just out and about, or just hanging out with family and stuff and just kind of having something. But there's a really clever way of getting the gradient. I had not seen it before, where you're actually holding two colors at the same time, and you kind of do one row in one color, one row in the other color, in different kind of amounts and different heights of stitches, so you can get the gradients. So you can kind of see, like, so this gradient is made up, I guess. Like there's different, like these are different colors of yarns, but because there's kind of this, when you're going from like pink to the blue, you do 1 row of blue, you know, and then 3 rows of pink, and then that kind of way. But it also that she changes the heights of the stitches, so it's
that's so clever.
it's just a really cool way of doing it. It's once you get into
knitting, you would often do like just more rows.
Yeah.
But in crochet, I can see how that different height of stitch could also create that a much
So that was a really fun pattern, and just very. I feel, and I like the drape of this one. It's just like it is just really a nice.
It feels kind of. I mean, I guess when you pick up all of it, it's quite heavy because there's a lot of it, but it feels really sort of light. And
I think compared to the other ones, like this is actually a lighter. It's a little bit more open, but because it is so big, it's still a fun one to wrap around. And rainbow is my favorite color, so I guess that's showing a lot. Yeah.
Now, let's go to something a little bit different.
Yeah.
Shall we talk knitting for
a
moment?
Yes, I would love to.
So this next one, I'm going to take a little bit of credit for this one.
You should.
So last year, as Gayanne and I were getting ready to do the West Knits MCAL, which happens in October every year, we were talking to Priya, and Priya had just started knitting. Literally, I think that morning you had done a knitting
I think
workshop.
that's right. Yeah.
And she was getting really into it, and you had done a little bit of knitting before.
A little bit, like a simple, probably garter stitch scarf or something, rectangle, like ages ago.
And we were talking about how we are similar in that we don't like doing, we get really bored with patterns that aren't challenging. So I suggested, because I think my second or third ever knitting project was the 2021 MCAL by Stephen West. I suggested to Priya that she jump on in and start off with an MCAL.
And I thought but at first I thought you were totally crazy, and because I saw cause I think you and Gayanne were both wearing your
so it was the 2021 was the shawlography,
which is intense. Oh my gosh, that was like, I was looking at it and I was like, I don't even quite understand the difference between a knit and a purl yet. I don't know, like this seems insane, and I was definitely on like, that's sweet, but no, I don't think I could do that. And then I started playing around with kind of some basic stitches and stuff, and then I just started browsing Stephen West's website, and I was like, oh, his designs are super cool. And I started joking to someone that his aesthetic is like more is more is more on steroids, which I obviously love. I think you can kind of tell from I love colors and like just different textures and patterns and things like that. So I thought, well, if he's gonna have videos, and I did I'm a big researcher, and I did all this like research, reading up on people who've done past MCALs, and they're like, well, there's lots of videos, and if you can knit and purl and you can increase and decrease, you can do it. I did not know how to increase and decrease, but I knew how to knit and purl, so I figured, especially with you and Gayanne, and I think some of our other friends who were doing the same MCAL, I was like, well, worst case scenario, I'll have some friends to help me puzzle through the stitches.
There was a lot of moral support.
Lots of moral support. Yeah, I definitely found the month of October so intimidating to see how other people did so much every week, and that there were people who actually finished the whole shawl in a month, which is nuts because it took me 4 or 5 months to do the whole thing. But it was
that's the more common experience, the 4 or 5 months.
But it was totally worth it.
Turned out beautifully.
I'm really happy with
Without further ado,
I'm super thrilled with it. And
Priya's first completed knitting project.
Yeah. Which is more VK yarns.
Now I'm gonna just put it out there that a lot of people that started this MCAL were not able to finish it because of the challenge of this. So
it was I feel like definitely at the end I was just like, I just want it to be done so I can say I'm done with it. But I'm really happy, and actually I did there's definitely some errors, some on purpose, some accidental. I did change a little bit because I didn't like I wanted it to be a little bit thicker towards the end. So this actually started out as a mistake, and then I liked it so much that I kept it and did it on the other side. So I think the original pattern comes to more of a point. I can't remember exactly now, but I wanted it to be a little bit fatter.
And then you've done a different little modification on the bottom of I call it the the corset part.
Oh. There were a few different options. I think I was originally like, I'm gonna do the full big one, but like this is a lot of knitting. Like I think after 4 or 5 months I was like, it's big enough. Like I think, and but I loved it, and I would definitely I'm very much would encourage anyone that if you, definitely be an adventurous beginner, but if you have learned how to knit and purl and you're willing to watch a lot of videos, and I think his videos are amazing. Like there's so many techniques in here that I learned that I don't know how many other patterns I would have had to do to encounter them all.
That's the beautiful thing.
And
the MCAL.
And I really like I-cords. Like I know that everyone was complaining about them, and I found the original, the first I-cord cast on really difficult because I'd never, I just, it was my very first knitting project. But by the end I was like, I-cords are really, I could just sit and knit I-cords all day. I don't know, I found it really meditative. So I loved all the I-cord bind off.
It's a pity you can't knit with wool, because I would just give you my I-cords to do in future. I'd just be like, here, Priya, I just need a 120 stitch I-cord. I'll see you next week.
I don't know, it's just it worked. I really liked it.
You've done such a beautiful
Thank
job.
you.
And the colour combination is just incredible.
Oh my gosh, I spent so much time. You should see the, I actually sent Michaela a screenshot of all my, I'd done all these, I took all the images from her website and all the colors and stuff, put them all next to each other, tried them in different ways, and did spent way too much time. But I'm really happy because I think I really like this silver, the kind of silver gray, and then this pink is just it's just so gorgeous. It's got so many different colors in it. I think this one might be Hawaiian Sunset. It's got some really lovely name, but it's so pretty. And this is where I really feel this variegated yarn, I really love the way it looks in knitting. I think it can look nice in crochet, but it really shines in knitting, especially when you have just a tiny little speck of a different color. Then you get just that one stitch in yellow or that one stitch in black, and it's just amazing. And I love crochet, obviously, but I really appreciated how doing the MCAL it gave me even more appreciation for yarn and different ways of using it, and just different ways that things come together, and kind of and I think I also feel I like that Stephen West's attitude. I think I can't remember what he there's a phrase that he would say that people
would say yes, don't stress. Don't stress.
I think
yes.
that was great. And then also while he was doing it, he's if you drop a stitch, or if you if you don't have exactly however many stitches, don't worry, just add a few. He's just so chill about it. And that was really reassuring. And I realized that it doesn't matter. And I've gone back through, and I think I can definitely find areas where I'm oh, oops, I was supposed to do stockinette and I did garter or whatever, but who cares? That's how I know it's mine.
No one really can ever tell.
Yeah, no one else will know. No. I know, but it's and I think the other thing that I really like is because you do you did the central piece, and then you kind of do one side and then the other, and kind of back and forth. I actually can see myself getting better. So the one I do feel the second half of the shawl is you can tell that I figured out tension a little bit more, because I have some of these where my I-cord's quite tight and I didn't really know. And anyway, it's just, but I like that it kind of documents that.
It's a journey. A journey in a gorgeous shawl. Yeah, you've done such a beautiful job of it.
Thank you.
Are you signing up for the MCAL again this year?
I'm not sure, because I actually have some big travels in at the end of the year, so it might be difficult.
We might give you a rain check for this year. You can do it next year.
There are so many of Stephen West patterns that I'm keen on, so
all right, it looks like a couple of other
just a couple little things I thought would be fun to share, kind of beyond the really big things. So this is Mosaic crochet, and this is this pattern is it's a Nomad Stitches pattern. It was actually started out as a swatch that I was making for a jumper that I got really intimidated with, and I'm gonna pick up again I think in a month or something once I'm finished with my current whip. But I this swatch took so much time because it's Mosaic crochet that I was I'm not just having a swatch. So I ended up making, these are little gauntlets, I guess. They don't have thumb holes, but I wear them sometimes. And this is a pro tip from someone from an icy climate. If it's really cold, wear a coat and then wear wristlets or gauntlets or whatever you call them. And then if you need gloves, you can put gloves on. But often just keeping your wrist warm helps. Also, these are pretty.
They are very pretty.
So I really love, and this is this was a really fun.
Is Mosaic crochet very difficult to do?
didn't think this was too difficult. I got the sweater I got, the reason I got like intimidated by it was just because it has to fit properly, and like the design, because you're going in the round and stuff, it was doing my head in a little bit. And I guess this was me jumping into the hardest thing possible. Like, it was my very first jumper, and of course I have to pick a Nomad Stitches Mosaic pattern. Like, why couldn't I pick a simple one? Which that's actually why I'm pausing on that one. I'm gonna do a simple jumper so I can get the hang of what matters and stuff, and then I'll jump back into it. But these are really fun, and I just love the pop of color. And then I do a lot of amigurumi, which is the little characters, although I don't have many of them because they're usually presents for my nibblings or other kids in my life. So this is a cute little
Nibblings
hedgehog.
being
nieces and nephew.
nephews.
Yeah, it's just my gender collective term. It's like sibling, but with an N instead of S. Yeah. This little hedgehog guy, I made on a whim and then decided it was actually a really great pincushion. So that's my, when I sew, this is my little hedgehog pincushion guy.
Beautiful.
Fun. And then I really like making earrings. And so this was a multi-craft earring experience where I actually did a macrame workshop, got really obsessed with macrame for about, a month, and made tiny macrame earrings it's a polymer clay, like a plant pot, and then a little crochet plant inside. So they're gigantic and ridiculous, and I love them.
Fabulous.
So I like, and I guess this is also crochet. I'm really into having, I guess it's fun to have crochet like in everyday things. And so I've made a bunch of these baskets with t-shirt yarn, and they're often my project baskets or my catch-alls or whatever. And I've probably got like 4 or 5 of these at home. And they're just so fun to make, and I kind of like that they're sort of lumpy and a little bit imperfect. And this one I just did in continuous round, so there's just an end up there that whatever. Like, it's just
and they bring so much color to the home, don't they, when you've got those things lying around.
Yeah. And that's just I like it when useful things are pretty and pretty things are useful. I think that's a fun way to go. So,
and you've brought a whip to show us.
I have
another knitting project.
It's my second knitting project, I guess. And actually, this was the pattern that I had in the back of my mind when I started to learn to knit, because I really wanted to make it. And this is the Brett Shawl by Rastis Shoe, and it's an origami knit pattern. So you can see that it looks 3D because it is, like, it's folded kind of with these. There are these like triangles of slip stitches, and then kind of purls and knits kind of in a certain pattern, such that the pattern the fabric doesn't lay flat, which is the point. So bonus, don't have to block it. You actually aren't supposed to block it, because then it would ruin the origami effect. But I saw this pattern, I think it was just on Instagram or something, and I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I need to make it.
I am also lusting after this pattern.
It's really beautiful, and it's it actually, like, that was a first, like, I actually don't, I think like a lot of people, I don't love swatching, but this one I felt like I really needed to, because I was using a totally different yarn. I guess this is where me using cotton, and I think in the pattern he's using wool, or like a wool acrylic blend or something. It does make a difference, and kind of, especially when you want to get a certain effect, and I wanted this like 3D effect, but I also didn't want it to be super stiff because it's gonna be a big blanket shawl. And so I did try out the yarn, which is a Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton. I think this is 4-ply cotton. Yeah,
it's 4-ply. Yep.
I wanted to make sure that it was both like drapey. Oh wow, is that Bendigo
Woolen Mills? This is Bendigo Woolen Mills, but a very old limited release color. But yes, I feel like maybe. Nice.
Well, I did get this
similar colorway.
This may have actually not, I think this might not be one of their official colors. It was I was in Bendigo, and I went into their back, their back storeroom of dreams, and had a wonderful
they
time.
Have a very it's a bit of a well kept secret, actually. The back room of dreams. Yeah,
it's great. And
not its official title.
No, it's just my title. But yeah, I've been there a couple of times, and my husband is the best, because he'll just kind of stand there, and I just like bring him things as I try to figure out what I want. And this is where I didn't actually know for certain I was going to make the Brett shawl with it, but then I saw this color, and this is like basically my favorite color other than rainbow, and I like had that in my mind already. Like, oh, well, my next project, I really want to make the Brett shawl because it's the shawl that I wanted to make since, you know, that's why I kind of got into knitting, and I love it. Like it's not actually as difficult as I thought it was. Like I'm actually really glad I did do the MCAL first because it taught me how to interpret stitches better, because the twisted stitch that he uses, I mean, I don't know how common it is or isn't, since this is only my second pattern, but it took me a few tries to get it.
Not that common.
Yeah. Well, it took me a few tries to like get it, and I was like staring a lot at the image and like a close up of the shawl online, and like kind of figuring out to make sure I got it right. So I'm pretty sure I did. And I love the effects, and it's so big. I did make it wider than the pattern. I think I added like 2 extra repeats of the triangles this way, because I really wanted it to be like an obnoxiously large blanket shawl, and I think I'm getting there.
Yeah, I think you're succeeding.
Yeah, so I think this is about like 40% of the length that it will be. So my goal is to try and finish it before the end of winter. So we'll see. If that happens, otherwise it'll be next winter. Cool.
Now, you mentioned earlier about, we talked a little bit about Nomad Stitches and the patterns and trying to find some crochet patterns that are a little bit more contemporary and easy to wear. Do you have any other favourite designers that you can recommend to us?
Definitely. So Linda Skuya of 11 Handmade. I think she's probably decently well known in the crochet world, but her designs are really lovely, and she the thing I think is so intriguing about her work is when you look at it, I feel like you can't really tell like how it's made, because she uses short rows, which I've kind of only learned a little bit about. I've made one of her patterns so far, just one of her shawls, that it just has this really cool way of building up. Kind of, it makes me think of like geologic strata, kind of like this kind of different layers that are triangular, or some are more rectangular, and they kind of build up. And she's got that theme in others of her designs, and she just, I feel like she really stretched my notion of like how elegant crochet can be. I do find her pattern, like, because they're so beautiful, they're almost like a little bit intimidating, but I do have a couple that I've purchased recently that I'm really excited to make. So many beautiful patterns and not enough time. I think she's definitely, I think Nomad Stitches and Linda Skuya are probably two of my favorite
faves. Beautiful.
Yeah. I think the other one is, well, I do like I said a lot of amigurumi, and there's a Flora doll that I made that's really cool, and I'll have to send you pictures because it lives with my niece right now. But the cool thing about this doll is that it transforms from a doll into a flower pot. I don't know if you had, I feel like maybe back in the 90s this was a thing where you can get these little toys that would like turn into cupcake dolls.
Yes.
And then you would like flip the skirt down and it would be a doll. It's like that, but with a succulent plant. And that's Carla Mitrani, I think is how you say her surname. And she has a whole lovely range of dolls. I have this love-hate relationship with amigurumi because I love the outcomes.
Yep.
But I find anything with a face is really easy to mess up.
Oh yeah, faces can go from cute to creepy in not much.
Yeah, so I feel like that.
Yeah. One of the things that we always talk about on Purlfect Pairings is what you like to drink while you're, well, in your case, crafting generally. And you've got something a little bit special to share with us.
Yeah, so my family is from India, and growing up my mom would always make chai. We actually call it cha, it's just a different way of saying it. And I'm extremely spoiled when it comes to homemade chai because my mom would make it fresh. And it's something that I like to drink pretty much every day anyway, but it's just really lovely with crocheting, especially in the winter. And I've brought a couple things to share about the chai. So the first is actually my mom wrote a cookbook. It's called Ghar Ki Rasoi, which means home cooking, and it's a Indian home cookbook where it's actually just like a family affair in a way. So long story short, when my sister first went to uni, she really wanted to know how to make all my mom's Indian dishes, and my mom didn't have any recipes for them because she just learned them from her mom and made them. So my mom started writing them down, and then probably about 15 years of that and kind of refining and all this stuff, she ended up having like hundreds of recipes that you can't get elsewhere. I mean, maybe now like there's kind of more on the internet and things, but I feel like when when we did this together about 10 years ago, I think. It was, there's still recipes in here that are, people, I have friends from India, from other parts of India who don't even know these dishes and things. So it's a really special book. You can get it on Amazon if you're keen. And it's just, it's lovely. And she's got a recipe for her chai masala, which is in here. And you can see this is well loved. So I've had this since we
and
made
it is actually, because it's called Indian Home Cooking Made Simple.
Yeah.
And the recipes are actually way more simple than I feel used to.
Yeah. Sorry, it's all
coming
out.
apart your book.
Yeah, no. This is how well loved it is. I need to get it bound a little bit. It lasted for a long time.
There's only sort of 12 ingredients for some of these things, or
so
smaller numbers.
Not to compare my mom to Julia Child, but I feel like in a way that Julia Child took complicated French cooking and made it easy for an American cook. I feel like my mom kind of did it in a way that I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and especially in the 80s and 90s, you couldn't get a lot of interesting ingredients in Utah. It's, now there's a much more global everywhere, but growing up, so she would have to make a lot of things herself or just kind of find substitutes for. So I feel like she really simplified a lot of things. So you can get you'll get classic, I think, sort of dishes like butter chicken and saag paneer and things like that. But you'll also kind of just get some, I think, dishes that I more associate with home in there, as well as my mom's masala recipes where you toast your spices and grind them fresh. And she has, the chai masala is one of them. But if you are not intrepid enough to make your own chai masala, which I understand because despite, being a technical adult, my mom still sends me her chai masala, which is the best. But when I can't get her chai masala, there's another one that I really like called Jogia chai masala. This is a small company out of Sydney, and the owner actually grinds the spices fresh when you order. So it's really fresh and it's super delicious. And basically I go between using this masala and my mom's masala every day. And I feel like the special ingredient that I add besides love, obviously, is fresh ginger. So and I make it on the stove top. So I boil the masala with tea leaves in water, and then I grate in fresh ginger. And I guess a little tip, if you want to keep fresh ginger on hand, but it could go bad kind of quickly in the fridge, just peel it and freeze it. And it's really easy to grate. So I just have a freezer full of ginger that I just pull from and
great tip.
Yeah. And any kind of, so I'm vegan and I use soy milk, but I think pretty much any kind of any kind of dairy or non-dairy milk would work fine. It's just kind of up to personal preference. And it's so warming, and I love and I always put a lot of sugar in it because that's how I grew up with it. So very sweet, very spiced with the masala. So Jogia chai masala or my mom's.
And I've tasted your mum's tea, and it is incredible. And
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been an absolute joy, and I hope that there's been some lovely inspiration for some of our watchers who are, both knitters, but also the crochet crowd out there.
Yeah.
So, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's been really fun to talk about all this stuff, and especially since, you were one of the reasons why I got into knitting as wholeheartedly as I did. It's great to come back and share all that I've gotten into in the last 9-ish months. So thanks so much.
Oh, how beautiful are those shawls and rastissew. There's a list of the shawls with the origami.
Oh. I need to retire.
Your queue is too long in Ravelry.
This lifestyle of mine is not consistent with enough knitting time.
I know. Isn't that always the way?
And how talented is Priya?
Oh, she's amazing. And just her adventurous spirit, I'll give that a crack. Or, and this this giving up of kind of making things perfect. That doesn't have to be perfect. Her shawl was gorgeous, right?
I think it's also really lovely to think about some of the alternative fibres that are out there as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And certainly, yeah, really interesting. I think there's increasingly more diversity of fibres out there. So that's something really, really fun to explore.
Certainly.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed our episode with Priya, we would love you and would like to hear more about knitting and sometimes crochet. We would love you to subscribe. So just subscribe on our YouTube channel and you can follow us while you're there on Instagram.
That's right. Please give the video a thumbs up if you've liked it. And in the comments, why don't you let us know if other than VK Yarns, what is your favorite supplier of non-protein based fibres?
Alternative fibres. That would be great because
Yeah.
it's something I'm really interested in exploring a little bit more as well.
Agreed.
And please tell your friends about us because we're trying to grow our community here. So, but yeah, we love to hear from you. Thank you very much once again for joining us.
Yes.
And happy knitting
And crocheting.